our messaging doesn't matter to us. Our people are not just buying what we're selling. They're buying the experience of working with us. They're buying the years we've spent being able to do what we do. We want to convey that transformation that happens when working with us. Bold comes when we give ourselves the permission to connect with them on that next level.
Welcome to today's episode of Influence by Design. I'm your host, Samantha Riley, and today we're talking about messaging. Now, this is one of my favorite topics. We all know that I've got lots of favorite topics, but definitely one of my favorites because I know that this is the difference between you having a business that's not making money and a business that is turning a lot of profit or bringing in a lot of profit. And I know you agree with me, Erin, my guest today. Welcome to the show, Erin Thomas. It's fabulous to have you here. Let us know, where are you in the world? Because I'm here at the end of my day getting ready to go to dinner, and you're starting.
I am in Stuttgart, Germany, in Europe. It is 9:15 in the morning. So we are. I'm starting my day. It's fresh and exciting for me.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation. We have definitely got some vibe happening. We are marketing nerds. We are human design nerds, so this is going to be fabulous. Let's start off messaging. On your website, you say that you help clients create messaging that stops your prospects in their tracks. Tell us what that means. I mean, it sounds pretty obvious, but I'd love you to deep dive into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been a professional writer and a messaging strategist for the last 20 years. So I've been around the block a few times. I've ridden the waves of trends. I've looked at, what's working 5 years ago that doesn't work this year. The key to messaging, in my opinion, is thinking outside the box. It is you want someone to feel something rather than nothing. When we're scrolling through our feeds and we see someone's content and we don't even stop to read it, or we just think, we want to be the person like, ooh, what is she saying today? What's going on in this world today? We want people to stop their scroll. And that means making sure that everyone loves us. We are not going to be everybody's cup of tea. We want to be our right people's cup of tea and the best cup of tea possible.
Totally.
So that's my goal.
Love it. And it's that vanilla. And I was talking to a really good friend just a couple of days ago, and we were talking about, having sass in our content. This came up because I was having actually an energy healing a few weeks ago. And the person that I was working with is like, Sam, you're so sassy. We want that to come out more. And I was talking to her and I said, we all know that we need to breathe more of our unique qualities and our uniqueness, if that's a word, into our stories and our content. But the conversation that I was having with this friend is it's really easy to slowly go down this slippery slope of vanilla. And all of a sudden you're like, oh God, my own content even bores me. It's a vulnerable share, but we're all human. And it's very easy to get caught in that. And what I loved about your website is that there wasn't that vanilla. There was definitely the sass there. I could read through it. And you can get a feel for who that person is. And I think that's, creating messaging so that you can get an energetic feeling of who this person is what it's all about, right?
I couldn't agree more. I think that infusing ourselves in our messaging is absolutely key for so many reasons. But like you just said, one of those main reasons is by the time someone has decided to get on a call with you or decided to work with you, we want them to know a little bit about us. We want to have already given them a snapshot of what it might look like to collaborate, to partner. What's our energy? Because quality messaging has two main goals. One is to attract our people, but the other one that's equally as important is to repel the wrong people. So I'm well aware that when people go to my website, there are going to be some that are like, hell yes, she gets it. She's quirky and fun and out of the box, and that's my thing.
Yeah.
And there's going to be some that are like, whoa, whoa.
Yeah. This is
This
definitely not
is
for
just,
me.
yeah, I can't imagine work. And that's fine. That's good. That's what I want. And that's what I try to help my clients understand is that
Yeah.
we don't want to be everybody's friend. A friend to many is a friend to none.
Yeah, totally, totally. So this is actually, I'm going to say this, and this could be a limiting belief on my behalf. So this will be interesting to see how this plays out. I think that this is harder than it looks to come out with something that is unique, which sounds crazy, right? Because we're there is only one of us and we're this person, but to transfer what's in our head and the way that we show up in front of people at a dinner party or having a drink, at brunch on Sunday is a lot harder to transfer into words on a website or to transfer into a social media post. Do you see this?
Absolutely. I feel this. It is, even for those of us who are knee deep in this every day, all day, it is absolutely a challenge. We all have some limiting beliefs, some baggage that we come with. We're also in this age of, we have access to everything. So it's much harder today than it might have been, in the dawn of advertising in the 60s, 70s Mad Men era when, there was only print media and some television media. So a lot of things could be new. Now we are seeing what everyone's doing. The competition is so fierce. The industries are, saturated. And it's really easy to think, what can I do that hasn't been done?
Yeah.
What can I? And the key there, I think, becomes one, working through your own mindset stuff. But the other piece is just allowing and giving yourself permission to sink into that authenticity. Like, you don't need to copy what anyone else is doing. Come up with your own way, period. Just let yourself and give yourself that permission slip to do things the way that feels authentic, in a way that feels good and juicy.
Yeah. So where does one start? Just imagine that we're sitting down to write. Let's start with a bio, for example, because bios can be super boring. Welcome to 1973.
Yes.
This is exactly how, I've written on my resume. Bios can be tricky to write. And a really hot bio is something that can be a real massive asset to you and open a lot of doors. Where could one start when we're trying to unpack what this uniqueness is and, the words and the stories and, what we're infusing through?
Absolutely. And I'll start by saying bios are one of my favorite things to start helping folks get, because it's often like their business card. It's the first taste that a lot of people want. When you search for someone on the internet, LinkedIn is always going to be in the top 3. So it's very important that your about page, which is your bio, be right. Like it's your first touch with people. So the first thing I always start with is that foundational level. Before we start writing, before we start doing anything, we have to get clear. We have to get really deep dived into who you are as in your life and in your business. What is your message? What are you doing? Why are you doing it? What is your North Star? We talk a lot about North Stars. It is not, if your North Star is to hit, 200K this year, that is not a North Star. That is a piece of the North Star, but we need to go deeper. So let's start and work back from there. Let's zero in and get very clear on your talking points, on your brand foundation. Some folks aren't even clear on their brand foundation, which is core values, mission and vision statements, their brand tone, the voice. These are the things. Before we can write a bio, we have to be very clear on that sort of thing, because then your bio can be written from that place. You need your bio it needs to sound like your brand. And I'll hear from people, oh, well, it's not really my personal brand. I just want to do my business brand. This is
oh my goodness.
Here's a fact. Here's
let's
a fact
open this
that a
can
lot
of
people,
worms.
we all have a personal brand. Whether you want to or not, doesn't matter if you're Steve Jobs or not. You know, we all knew Steve Jobs as well as we know Apple. There are two. And whether or not you want to admit that you have a personal brand, it is up to you to control the narrative. Otherwise, people are going to do it for you.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And if you're listening to this and you missed that, please rewind 30 seconds and listen to that, because this is so important.
It's the heart, I believe, of messaging. And I know we can maybe talk about that in a minute, but the personal brand, and it starts with your bio, because again, it's people's first connection with you often. So the vibe for your business should be similar to the vibe you want in your own brand. Otherwise, you've got you're driving down two lanes that aren't crossing. And that's what we want to do with messaging, is bring them close together so that they can interweave and feel good.
Yeah, totally. Love that so much. You talked about the North Star there, and you talked about value and vision and mission. How important is it to know what it is that is why you do what you do before you even start writing this? Even if it's not in your bio, is that something that you feel is important and that will help create that? Or at that point, is that not so important?
Yes and no. So I believe it's important to internally be doing that work to figure out your why, to your North Star, your mission and vision. Does that need to be in your bio? Absolutely not. But it often will inform the language that we use, because we will have very specific goals. Your bio is not just a rehash of your resume. A lot of people come in and it lists out all their qualifications and all of their schooling and all of their experience, and that's great. And maybe we can pepper in some of that. We absolutely will. But that's not what people are looking for. People are looking to know, like, and trust you. So to do that, we have to get clear on North Star, mission, vision stuff. That being said, a lot of folks, I think, believe that once they set these, that's it. I have my North Star, I have my mission statement, I have my vision. That is not how these things work. These things are meant to be revisited, revised, evolved, because we are humans. That's what we do. You know,
Yes.
as we evolve, our businesses evolve, our goals evolve, our visions, all of this. So we have to keep revisiting it, which is why our messaging evolves.
Yeah.
And why we need to update, because, you know, I know when I started my business 20 years ago, I have way different goals now. But those goals that I had then got me to this point, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah.
So revisiting, revising as many times as necessary, key.
Love it, love it, love it. Now, you know, we've talked about the bio a little bit. I thought that was a really great place to start, because I feel like when you can nail your bio and start to think about things that are important to you, or the tone that you want, or, you know, setting that vibe, that it's almost a little bit helpful to start, you know, creating things that are bigger. Social media posts, home pages on websites, they're just like, they're huge, you know. You talk about turning content from bland to bold. What are some of the necessary things that we need to think about when we're starting to, you know, think about what it is that we are bringing to the table that is bold?
Absolutely. So the biggest perspective shift that I like to talk about is switching it from us to them, our audience, our clients, our target market. Storytelling is key, but when we only tell like it affects us, we miss the opportunity to connect. So I think the key to turning from bland to bold is to flip the script. How does this connect with them? How does this impact them? What value does this add for my people? What can I provide to them that will inspire, motivate, educate? And how can I do it? How can I speak to them in language that resonates? Because we're not selling. Our messaging doesn't matter to us. Our people are not just buying what we're selling. They're buying the experience of working with us. They're buying the years we've spent being able to do what we do.
Yeah.
So we want to convey that transformation that happens when working with us. Bold comes when we give ourselves the permission to connect with them on that next level.
Yeah, I love that. Storytelling, I find really an interesting topic. And the reason is that a lot of people find it really tricky to understand which stories to tell. And you're talking about flipping the script, and that's just adding another layer of complexity when you're already confused of what story to tell. What I hear often is, I haven't been on drugs, I haven't been to jail, I haven't been homeless and lived in my car. I don't really have a story because, we're often thinking that it's these big, bold stories to tell. And I've found that a lot of people I work with are almost, I don't know that afraid's the right word, but they're a little bit timid to share it because they're like, oh, who am I to tell a story? I've lived a really good life and my parents loved me and, I've got amazing kids and I've got a beautiful house. I haven't, been sleeping in someone else's basement. How can we start to understand what stories to tell and why? Because I think that's what you were talking about there, flipping the script. But why are we telling the stories? Because we're not serving ourselves.
Correct.
Oh, that was
talk.
big. I'm so sorry. I just realized how much I dumped on you then.
I could talk for an hour about this. This is my nerdy, I love storytelling is my heart. And there's so much juiciness to dive into here. So one, we all have a story. The same way we're just talking about personal brands, we all have a story, lots of stories. Two, it's important to remember that, yes, those stories of childhood with, or drug abuse or homelessness, those are incredible stories and motivational, inspirational stories. And the fact remains that the vast majority of people do not have those stories. So the people we are talking to are not necessarily looking for those stories. What we do have, and yes, it's cliche. There's no, we are the only us, that's our superpower. Everyone says that. But the thing remains that, let's say I decide I want to learn to play golf. I am not going to go look for Tiger Woods to be my instructor, right? I am going to look for the local golf pro that has good reviews. In other words, I don't need the best of the best of the best. I need someone who is better than me. I need someone who is further down the road than me. So that's what I really encourage clients when they say, well, I don't have these stories, or I'm not the, I'm not well known, not the Jeff Bezos of Amazon or whatever. People aren't looking for that. They're looking for you as the authority in your space. And that's the stories that you need to be sharing, establishing yourself as an industry leader, as a thought leader, as the authority. So it takes off a lot of the pressure because we all feel like, well, man, there's someone doing it better. The same way when we were in elementary school and we're like, oh, she's prettier, he's better at basketball, and there's always going to be someone better and further in their career.
I was just about to say, but there is people that are better. Let's just move on from that.
So we just have to let that go and sink into our own zones of genius and our own stories, because chances are you have stories that everyone is going to benefit from because we've all been in similar situations. The key is tying it to your audience and how you can use it as education for them. I'll use an example. So I last week, my business partner and I spent a week in Italy. We did our annual meeting down there. And
As you do.
well, as we did, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Beauty of living in Europe.
I
So
love this.
what we did though is use ourselves as examples. We shared our adventures on social media, on LinkedIn. We did a newsletter around it. And were we talking about work? No. We were inviting people in to us gorging on pasta and strolling the canals, eating gelato, and sitting at our Airbnb table working on work. And but at the end, the story was we started sharing about our email list went up by hundreds of people. We got more views. Our social media audiences grew by over 400 people. We got 200 new LinkedIn newsletter subscribers. We got media pickups in excess of 300. These numbers confirm the importance of storytelling because our people want to know us. They want to trust us. They want to vibe with us.
Yes.
We got I think we came home to 11 new discovery calls booked. And we weren't talking about messaging. We weren't talking about public speaking. You know, it wasn't about any of that. It was about being authentic. And we were, I mean, some of the days, I mean, we were drenched rats. It had rained. We weren't worried about putting on a filter and fixing our hair and curating this reel.
Yes.
It was going live being like, hey, you guys, this is what it looks like. This is real life. You know, we're going to find some food. I guess my point is invite people into who you are and what lights you up. And our brand is built around freedom, family. We're both mothers. We're both married. You know, we are building businesses around our lives.
Yeah.
Travel, all of these. We want people who value those things too. So we talk about them.
Yes.
Yeah. If we hid that part, I learned when I was younger, I used to try to not hide, but I didn't want people to think, oh, well, she has an infant at home. So, you know, I would take calls at 8:00 at night, even if it meant, you know, that wasn't convenient. I'm a mom, you know, and my daughter's 11 now, so we're not in that phase. But when I started owning, like, this is my story. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a traveler, I'm an American expat living in Europe. And if that doesn't work for you, that's okay. The game changed.
But all of a sudden, other American expat mums that are going through, you know, different challenges of not being at home and having family, being in countries that don't speak their native language, that have children that maybe are younger and aren't sleeping, of course they're going to have that connection.
Yes. And they can come in and then they can see, wow, she's doing big things. She's running a successful business. She's making good money. Like, she's doing the things she wants to do and living it and doing it on her terms.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
I love that you're sharing, you know, what's going on in your life. And there was an instance that I saw, and I don't know if you've seen it, also about sharing what is important to you and what is coming up. There was a tweet put out by a restaurant owner in Ireland this week that was very controversial or not politically correct. I'll put it in air quotes, where it was around, you know, there's a very big on social media swell around trans people being able to go to the bathroom of their choosing. And he came out and said, in my restaurant, people that are biological males will not be allowed in the women's restaurant. So if that's you, don't come to my restaurant. Now, there was initially, he was a bit like, have I done the right thing? This could be a real big backlash. He has been fully booked since that tweet went out. There are queues at his restaurant. It has gone off because people are like, aha, we know that, you know, our children can be safe in the bathroom. This is where we're going to go. He knew who his audience was. They aligned with his beliefs, and he just kind of put it out there. And I thought that was a great story of really owning your beliefs and what you believe in and being able to share that, and the right people being on that journey with you.
100%. And I think you nailed it on the head, that the most important piece of that for me is that he knew his audience.
Yeah.
He knew, and that takes work to figure out your audience, to do that research, to track your analytics, to figure out who are your people and to speak directly to them. I think that's key. I'm not saying I agree with his message.
I actually have not said which side of the fence I'm on.
Right.
It was purely, this is the story.
Yes.
And yeah.
That is, I think, key. That the fact that and I believe in doing that from a messaging. And that is a perfect example of what I was saying earlier. A friend to many is a friend to none. He was not so worried about alienating people. He knew very well that that would alienate some.
Yeah.
And he was confident enough in his knowledge of his base that he knew that that would be great. So it sounds like that worked out absolutely in his favor. That's exactly the deep dive that I like for people to examine. Using the bio, for example, that we were talking about. When we start doing that, I call it a beyond the bio bullet list. And I want you to dump all the beliefs, the fun, the ugly, all of those things here so we can mine it for those types of things. And some, you may be like, oh, I'm not comfortable sharing that. But some, like, that's the content we're looking for. Is this a belief you have that you want to share? Because niching down is the key, as we all know. Entrepreneurs, the more you can niche down, the more longevity you can have. And people get scared of that because they think, I don't want to alienate anybody.
Yeah,
totally. I'm guilty of that too, because everybody needs messaging. Everybody needs a writer. But no, when we niche down, and that's what the Irish restaurateur did.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's about being unapologetic in who you are as well. And I think that's the beautiful piece when you share stories that are, going back to the storytelling, unapologetically sharing stories about yourself without worrying about other people, even though, and going back to what you said about flipping the script, it is about them. So there is a balance there of being unapologetically you, but not making it about you.
Absolutely. And he was more so letting his people know, this is something that a decision I've made. This is, if it's a safety thing for you, I have addressed it. Absolutely. Yeah. He met his audience where they were. And I think that's great. Again, the permission slip that he gave himself to be unapologetically him.
Yeah. Yeah. Pat on the back for that.
Right.
What is the missing link that you often see when people are starting to extract their stories or starting to explore what are the stories we're going to share? And I'm not talking here the stories like we just shared where someone just made a tweet. I'm talking about the stories that are really the foundational stories of our brand.
Well, I think it's about human connection. It's always come down to human connection. We can have great offerings, great services, great products, but at the end of the day, our business is about human connection. So the stories that we need to be sharing are inviting people to connect with us on a human level. People want to know, how did we get here? What brought us to this point in our life, in our business? Why are we so passionate about what we're doing? Was there an incident that made us passionate? When did we have an aha moment that this is what I'm meant to be doing? It's letting people peek behind the curtain, so to speak. It's talking about our business in a way that is not robotic and not what they say, the rules. It's letting people see the human behind the business.
Yeah. You're talking about the human aspect. I want to kind of change gears a little bit because I know that you personally have or use human design in your business to create your offerings and to create how your business feels to you. And I know that this is a really important piece because then what happens when you're in alignment is that everything on the other side for your clients is in alignment. And I'd love to know sort of when it was that you started experimenting with human design and what you noticed within your business and yourself when you started on your human design journey.
Absolutely. Well, I guess unconsciously, I started in my early 20s, when I finished my master's degree and I got the job that I wanted in an ad agency, and it was very prestigious and all the things. And I was miserable. I hated it. I
Mm.
loathed going to work. I lasted 3 or 3.5 months. Um, and so I started my business at 24. So that was the first. I didn't realize. I just knew that things didn't feel aligned, and I
Yeah.
knew that I wasn't like a lot of the people I saw around me. These people that could burn the midnight oil, working around the clock. They could stay focused on projects for endless amounts of time. They could crank it out. It was these words of, they were in the trenches, and that was just not me. So
Mm.
that I started getting that restless feeling around that time. And human design was still not really
Not as
talked about.
mainstream.
It wasn't as mainstream. So I would say my late 20s. So it would have been, 15 years ago or so, 12 or 15 years ago, was when I really started. I read a book and I was like, oh, and I kind of realized the majority of people, we're raised as generators because
Yeah.
that's the large number on there's the most of them.
Well, there's
And
70% of us around the world that are generators, and we're here to
right.
build things, and the Industrial Revolution is built on that.
And it's incredible. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
the energy that you have and it's amazing. But it had left me as a projector. And that's when I discovered I was a projector. It had left me feeling burnout, overwhelmed, but also lacking or lazy at times or
Mm.
defeated, because like, what was it about me? What did I have? ADHD? Did I have, was this what was going on?
You're asking
Um,
yourself, what is wrong with me?
what
Why
is
aren't I
wrong with
like
me?
other people?
Yes. And I looked, I even thought back to, my education and middle school and high school. And I was different even then. And I had friends by this point, and we were all kind of on this journey together, discovering, oh, wow, I have a reflector friend. I have a manifestor friend. Wow. Okay. So this is why we have felt like we were hitting brick walls. But this was the gate opening for me,
Mm.
in terms of my business, because all of a sudden it was the permission slip I needed to not run myself ragged, to
Mm.
not be trying to do the launches and pushing it, right to the 12th hour every time,
Yeah.
it gave me pause. And by my early 30s, I was structuring, okay, I'm not meant to be working 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year, like this is why
Yeah.
corporate America did not work for me.
Yeah,
Um,
totally. So knowing that you're a projector or, learning that you were a projector, how did that then change your business, the way that you structured your days, your weeks, your offers? And was this something that happened quite quickly, or was there I have to try this and see if it really works for me, like almost a phase where you didn't believe that it could work a different way?
I'm very fortunate in that it was pretty quick for me. I
Uh-huh.
immediately, I mean, I'm the type that's, once I read the first book, I became a voracious learner. I had to learn all that I could. To this day, I still am learning about my human design and everyone else's. So once I understood, it happened pretty quickly. At least the attempts to put it in. Now, it takes time in business to teach your clients how things are going to change, to
Yeah.
approach things differently.
Mhm.
But the desire and the implementation happened pretty quick. So the main things that changed for me were spaciousness I learned the difference between flexibility and spaciousness. And, a lot of us go into business thinking, I just want a flexible schedule. And yes, that's true. But I realized that did not equate to spaciousness in my calendar. Yes, I could be flexible and I could work in the morning versus the night, but I was still working too much. I did not have room to breathe. I did not have room to do the things that
Set
lit
your
my fire.
soul on fire. Yeah.
Yes. So how can I create spaciousness in my calendar? That started looking like, I'm not going to work before this time in the morning. I'm not going to work after this time at night. I'm going to make sure that I have at least one travel per month. It changed from working 5 days a week to working 4 and then to working 3. At least external. I still do an internal only one day, but it's not client calls. It's not client work. It's only on my business.
Yep.
Because what I found was I was working for everyone else, but I didn't have time to work on myself and on my stuff, because at the end of the day, I was tired. So building in a day that was completely internal, game changer.
Totally.
Yeah, and then giving myself the other big thing was, hustle culture, and it's getting better. But at this time, everyone was into the hustle and that constant looking for work. Well, a key piece of being a projector is waiting for the invitation.
Yeah, totally.
I quit immediately. I wasn't doing like cold calling, but reaching out and all of that, I focused on my message, on me, putting out and trusting that it would attract my people. And it did.
Yeah.
I quit hustling to find business, and I let it come to me by getting really strategic on what I was talking about.
Yeah. What I love about this is that a lot of projectors, when they first find out they're projectors, is they struggle with this waiting for an invitation. And it's almost like this feeling of like, oh my God, so I've just got to sit back and wait. But in actual fact, as a projector, by doing all of the things that you're talking about, being your brand, sharing content, sharing stories, this is how you get the invitation. By being very visible, being very authentic, so that people can go, I really love what Erin's doing. Let me reach out.
It is. And I'm not saying it's an easy thing. I still have moments where, business has ebbs and flows inevitably.
Oh, you mean you're human?
Yeah, so,
God, really?
In a valley of business, right? When you're in a valley of business, you're like, oh my God, I need to white knuckle this. I need to, and to have to remind yourself. And sometimes when I do fall into that and I find myself doing all the things and I realize I am very frazzled, I am overwhelmed, I think, I got out of my groove here. I need to, and anytime I turn back inward and start focusing on what I'm sharing and trusting the process, things have a way of righting themselves. And I don't think it's coincidence. I think it's how it's meant to be.
And that white knuckling, that is the same for anyone, whether any type, I should say, because as a generator, I notice the same thing, that when I'm doing that, it's like, oh, stop, Sam, do more of what you love, because when I have that lit upness from whatever I'm doing, that's what energetically attracts people to me. So it's about, we're all human, we have these things, but as we're able to experiment with them, it makes it a lot easier to slip back into what we're meant to be doing a lot quicker, to go,
Yes.
I realize what pattern I'm playing here. This isn't serving me. Let's change it up. Now, you're a splenic projector, which means that you really are designed to make all your decisions on intuition. Is this something that you found yourself always doing, or is this something that you've really needed to trust and you've kind of oiled that machine or, worked that muscle over time?
I have definitely, it is a practice and a learning to trust. I have always had that. And I recognize that now when I look back. But again, the majority of us are, we learn to think things through or to talk things through or not to be rash or don't rush. And so I, early on, I mean, that was how I did things. Like even when I would get I call it a ping, even when I would get a ping, I would think, you can't rush into that. You can't, people would say, you can't just decide that. That was a game changer with learning about my human design, because all of a sudden I trust, like when I get a ping, it's pretty solid and it works good and bad. If I get a vibe from somebody like this is not a good fit, I don't force it anymore. I don't try to, just because I get an invitation, if it's not the right invitation, that doesn't mean I have to take it. And that's, I think, a weird middle ground, because those of us who are sitting around waiting for the invitation, sometimes it can be easy to be like, jump on the invitation.
Yeah, I've got an invitation. Yes.
Got an invitation.
I can't let it go.
Yes. And when you get that little vibe, I had a connect call yesterday that I knew during the call, this is not for me. And I told him at the end, like, that I'm happy to refer him to someone, but I felt very mature in that moment. I felt very like, oh, look at me being adulting. Grown up. It is being a splenic projector. It has taken some getting used to, but it's been really powerful in business. And the other piece is it helps me in my messaging, because now I communicate that clearly. I may not call it, I am a projector with splenic authority to my clients, like the ones that are not human design, but I do believe in boundaries and being very clear. So I can let people know when they can expect to hear from me, what days of the week I work. If you message me on a Saturday, you're not going to hear back from me until Monday. I can be very clear because of what I know about myself. And that has been tremendously helpful in how I engage with my clients.
Yeah, I love that so much, because when we as business owners or entrepreneurs have the right energy that's correct for us, and where we're living in alignment with that, the rest of the world just kind of works. Yeah.
Just falls into place. Yeah.
It does. It does. Erin, I've just loved chatting with you. I feel like we could nerd out for hours, but we can't, because I know that you've got somewhere else to be and my stomach's grumbling and it's dinner time. I know that just, coming back to the, storytelling and building our authority and being authentic, I know that you've got a resource that you are willing to share with our audience around some opportunities. I'd love you to share a little bit around what that is.
So on our website, I have two, but the website, wittergroupllc.com, we have multiple resources available, but my favorite one is you can sign up to get weekly speaking opportunities delivered right to your door. And it's not always just speaking. It can be opportunities to publish. It can be opportunities to contribute to news articles, publications. It's very quick, simple, easy, no strings attached. They just come to your inbox and you can explore them and sign up. And, visibility is such a big piece. Credibility and messaging play such big roles. So I think that's a very powerful tool to have in our toolbox.
Yeah, thank you so much for offering that. Definitely get on that if you're listening to this episode. As you know, I'm always talking about building your authority and being the go-to leader in your industry, and being able to have access to these opportunities is definitely one of the ways that you can do that. So you can get that resource over at influencebydesignpodcast.com. Erin, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today. And
thank you so much for having me and for staying late in your day to make it happen. I so appreciate it.
Thank you. Been an absolute pleasure.